And good morning, everybody. Welcome, Hot Takes Goodman and Haertl. How are you, Bruce?
I'm good, Eric. How about you?
I am good. We are about a week away from rookies reporting.
Yes, we are.
Right?
That is correct. Absolutely. Hard to believe, isn't it?
We have made it through the Rockies season once next week hits and rookies report. But congratulations to Hunter Goodman for being named an all-star, and I would say well-deserved.
Oh, my gosh. I tried to make the point all weekend on the TV side of things that this is a guy with legitimate all-star credentials. Would have been in at least the conversation, regardless of what team he was playing for, with the numbers that he had. He's been the one shining light in an otherwise pretty dark season for the Rockies. There's been glimpses of other guys, but Hunter Goodman has been one consistent talent. I'm really happy for him. I mean, 25 years old. He's in his first full season in the big leagues, and he's accomplished a great thing.
I want to get a quick thought from you. I saw this on social media yesterday. A lot of Juan Soto fans are upset that he was not named an all-star, but a lot of the reasoning has to do with the salary more than the numbers. Can you square that circle for me?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure exactly what the issue is with the salary. I don't think he's an all-star. So, I mean, it doesn't bother me one way or the other.
Yeah, I know.
So, I mean, but that's part and parcel of what makes the all-star game somewhat interesting. I'm not going to go all deep dive on the all-star game and great 95-year-old, great tradition and things like that. There have been very memorable moments in the all-star game. More than anything else, it is an exhibition. At times, things have weighed on the outcome, and home field advantage has silly in a silly fashion been awarded, but we've gotten past that. It's good because it's the game that most closely approximates the game the way that it's played in the regular season, so there's value for that. Other than that, who cares?
Have you ever thought about starting a sports bar? Well, if you have, you need to head over to Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch or the DTC. Sportsbook Bar and Grill was designed and formed by a couple of sports fans. It started with Judson and Jeremy. They started in the DTC. Then they moved downtown, I believe near Wash Park. Now they have a location in Highlands Ranch. They're hoping in September in Parker. And it really is arguably, to me, the best sports bar in town because the food is outstanding. There are huge televisions everywhere. When you hear people say, well, every seat's a good seat in the house, there it really is. And the wait staff is great. The food is outstanding. I've told you many times, I get takeout from there all the time. That's how good it is. And when you hear bar food, why in the world would you get takeout? There you will. So Sportsbook Bar and Grill, you can find them in the DTC, Highlands Ranch, and coming soon to Parker. Time now for The Lead.
The Lead is presented by Sasquatch Casino, a family-owned casino that treats you like family.
Valanciunas. Jonas Valanciunas. I've been practicing that name
done.
And over again, and I thought I might get a reprieve because he was going to be leaving town before he even got to town in theory. But the Nuggets are reportedly expecting him to honor his contract despite his interest in playing in Europe. When you heard the news that Valanciunas wanted to play in Europe, did you think the Nuggets would let him out of his deal?
No. Why would they? I mean, they've got the full weight of FIBA, which is the governing body of international basketball, behind them. They said over the weekend that they would not allow a player to make a move like that with an existing contract. He has an existing contract.
Right.
You can make the argument that it's a year. He's got 2 years. The second year is non-guaranteed, but he does have at least a binding contract for a year, and good for the Nuggets to make their stand. It's the logical one. That's the player that they traded for. Eric, it's the player that they've wanted to trade for, apparently, for the last couple of years. So, and yes, Al Horford is still out there, but Jonas Valanciunas is a guy that really, to me, is the crown jewel of these four guys, not Cam Johnson because he was traded for, but in terms of free agents, that are coming in just because of the role that he would play behind Nikola Jokic. So Let's get this thing under control. Let's get it figured out. Let's get him here and soothe any ruffled feathers and make this thing work, because I don't know about you. This is the first time that I've been so excited about the Nuggets season coming up that I'm ready for it to start tomorrow.
Right. Well, I wasn't so sure that Valanciunas wasn't going to play in Europe. I'm going to go back to the history. Josh Kroenke had always been very supportive of Masai Ujiri and Tim Connolly trying to better their lives. He was very open about it. It's like, if they want to explore other options, I'm totally cool with that. Two of the better GMs in the league. So I'm thinking maybe Josh Kroenke would have a soft spot in his heart to allow a guy to play closer to his family, which is something that he wants to do. I'm guessing that he wants to start. That's something he would not be doing in Denver.
Right.
But then I started to gain a little faith that maybe indeed he would wind up staying here because, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, his group that represents him, are you familiar with the agency that represents him and everybody else on the Nuggets?
No.
To me, when I read this, I'm like, you know what? He's going to be here. And not because of what the Nuggets are commanding that he does, because he is under contract to play for the Nuggets, but the group that represents him also represents Jokic, Gordon, and Murray.
Wow.
And you would think that one of those three guys, if not all three guys, would call him and say, listen, you're coming to a really good situation. You might want to be here. But I think it is fair to say, do you really want to keep a guy who doesn't want to be here? Isn't there a little bit of a concern that he has his heart in Greece, yet his body is in Denver, despite all of the potential great things that could happen with the Nuggets this season?
Yes. The short, quick answer to that is yes. I do think that there's a potential for concern. That is where I think the Nuggets have got to do a pretty deep dive into where he is at this point. And I don't know anything about Valanciunas whatsoever, other than the metrics of his game. I understand his minutes played, what he brings to it. The points that he scores, the rebounds, all of that stuff, those things that can all be evaluated on a flat line. What kind of teammate he is, what kind of company man he can be, this kind of things. Those are things that I just simply don't know at this point. But to your point, and it's a good one, at least there's familiarity now with the people that represent potential teammates on his team, very important teammates on his team. Yeah. No question about it. Can't get any bigger than the three you just named off. So I am still pretty optimistic about this and pretty bullish about it. But I do think that you bring up an interesting point, and I think it is a fair question. Just how deeply rooted was he or is he in wanting to play in Greece? It was reportedly going to be a 3-year deal. He was reportedly, as of Friday, in Athens, ready to take his physical to join this team. So the wheels were in motion. We find out now that he's going to be apparently in Lithuania, his home country, today, making appearances. And where it goes from this point, we'll see. But we do know that the Nuggets have said that they expect him to honor his contract, which is now under control of the Denver Nuggets.
I think when a new front office takes over, specifically a GM, and I obviously put that in quotes because they don't officially have a GM, but we know it is Tenzer and Wallace. There are certain boxes that you need to check in order to gain credibility within the organization, with the fans, and with the media. These are 4 boxes that would need to be checked. How good are you at making trades? How good are you at maximizing free agency? How good are you in the draft? And how tough are you without being a complete jerk in a negotiation? They have checked 3 boxes in less than a month. Number 1, they showed not only can they make a trade, but they did a seismic shift trade for this organization to make them far more flush with cash under the salary cap. So that's a big win. That was a quick check. Then in free agency, they picked up some pieces with that extra money that I think that you and I believe, maybe national people don't believe it, but I think Bruce Brown is a right fit for this organization. Right. Valanciunas is the right fit for this organization, so on and so forth. But then the other one is don't fuck with us. And that's the box that the Nuggets just checked with Tenzer and Wallace. Oh, you want to go someplace else, do you? Really? No. You're staying here. You are staying here because you're under contract. We own your rights and we will play hardball with you. And you're staying here. For a couple of kids, again, who look like they just got off their paper route, they have become even more and more impressive with their toughness as much as their deft dealings so far during this offseason.
Yeah, I can't think of two guys on the local scene who have stormed the beaches like these two guys have. It has been absolutely remarkable. And I understand the skepticism that some had, the newness of the situation, the lack of experience in calling their own shots. I certainly understand where that skepticism would have come from. But Eric, to me, those questions have, I don't even want to say long since been answered, because it's only been 6 days, for goodness sakes, or 7 days, I guess 7 days now. It was a week ago today that the trade for MPJ was made. But this is a team, I'm talking about Tenzer and Wallace, that has hit the ground or the floor running in about as impressive a fashion as you could possibly ever expect or hope for. And it's remarkable. More power to them. And they may not be done. They may not be done. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, speaking of potentially not being done, there are multiple reports out there that if Bradley Beal is bought out by the Suns, 6 teams would be interested in bringing him in. Those 6 teams, the Nuggets, Bucks, Clippers, Heat, Lakers, and Warriors. Do you think Beal would be a great fit for this team?
No, I'm not. I'm not as bullish on Bradley Beal as some might be, and I would understand why they would be bullish on him. Guy's a good player. All he's been is a scorer. All he's been is a facilitator. He has been a really good player in crap places to play, with Washington, and then more recently in the last 2 years with Phoenix, where, interestingly enough, he's improved his shooting. He's never been a great three-point shooter, but he has been a better than adequate three-point shooter in Phoenix. He's a shooting guard. Tim Hardaway Jr., shooting guard. I think that my hesitation is not with the type of player that he is. My hesitation is with, you've got some very different moving pieces right now. Be careful about how many you bring in and try to expect them all to morph together as a club. Right. Is Bradley Beal, do you look at Bradley Beal coming in as a starter? Because that's all he's ever been. I mean, are we expecting Bradley Beal all of a sudden now to be, I'm all good with coming off the bench, for instance? And I'm not, and I don't make those decisions, but I'm guessing that's where he would be. I mean, Tim Hardaway Jr. was a starter all year long last year in Detroit, a much improved Detroit Pistons team. That dynamic is going to be different in Denver. So all I would say is, my caution would be careful of the balance and the dynamic of team, which the Nuggets have really, even through the tumults of the last couple of years, still done a pretty good job with. That they just didn't have enough ammunition to take care of things in the last year, injuries and all that kind of stuff. But they've always had a good sense of family and a good sense of team.
Every season, there's turnover on most rosters, specifically in the NFL, where it's, roughly a third. I think it's great that they are making these changes, and I think they're going to be impactful changes. But every year, at the end of the year, it's kind of like a room filled with furniture in your house. You keep some pieces, and then you get rid of some pieces, and then you bring in some new pieces. A lot of these pieces look pretty good. The question is, do they all match and fit together? And the more furniture you bring in the room, the more tables, nightstands, tchotchkes, whatever you want to call them. Maybe you want to have like a Zen fountain in your living room. The problem is all of your furniture is 18th century. It's not really good looking. It's not really going to match. If I'm the Nuggets and I brought in Bradley Beal, I'd bring him off the bench. I would not start him. And I would not start him, and he probably wouldn't be happy with that.
No.
But here's the deal. If he does sign with the Nuggets, and I don't know if the Nuggets are going to go after him, he needs to be willing to accept a bench role and be a role player, and he would be the firepower off the bench. I like that for starters, but I also don't like his lack of defense in the starting lineup matched next to Murray. I don't like that you really don't have any reliable perimeter defenders out there in the starting lineup. But think about what you can do defensively in the next unit. So let's say you have Beal and Bruce Brown. So you have defense and some offense with Brown. You got plenty of offense with Bradley Beal. Then you have defense up the yin-yang with Peyton Watson, who'd be coming off the bench. Julian Strawther, probably not as much. That's going to be more offense. And then Valanciunas. Or maybe throw in Hardaway. So at least you have a guy out there that could be instant offense coming off your bench. But he needs to be willing to take probably the vet minimum, which I don't think he will. They could use the mid-level, exception on him if they want to. I'm not so sure if I would spend that right now. I might wait, like the Avs should wait until the trade deadline and then use that to make a move because you don't know what kind of injuries they're going to have either.
Eric, you bring up something, and you and I have talked about this a lot, and it bears repeating because sometimes it gets lost in the conversation. We talk so much about depth, or in the Nuggets case, especially over the last couple of years, the lack of depth. What we don't talk about as much, because it hadn't been a problem in their championship season, but it's been a worsening problem in each of the last 2 years since it, is how this has become a really mediocre defensive basketball team. I mean, they were 26, I think, in total defense. Don't quote me on it, but it was somewhere in that realm last year. They just were not a good defensive unit. And that gets kind of pushed aside when you're so good offensively and you're averaging 120, 121 points. But we know how that all changes once you get to the postseason. And teams that really defend, are generally the teams that are the hardest outs, even in the NBA playoffs. The Nuggets doing this facelift and what David Adelman in particular has talked about. I want to make sure that we run a system that will be appealing to these guys coming back. Part of that system, a lot of that system, better be the way that this team defends, because they've got to be you got to be a top 15, top 12 type of defensive team, I think, to really do what you want to do in the NBA in the playoffs. So that needs to be, I think, a point of emphasis. And so I'm glad that when we talk about it, we bring defense right to the forefront. We talk about Tim Hardaway Jr. We talk about Valanciunas. We talk about Bruce Brown. We know that there are guys that are willing defenders in that starting lineup, because that, to me, depth is obviously 1A, but 1AA is this team's ability to defend as a team collectively.
Well, far be it from me to try and reinvent and repurpose the game of basketball by stating the obvious here. When they won a championship, they brought in a pair of D and threes.
Yeah.
What do those D and threes do? Well, for starters, they play defense, which they're going to force turnovers and things like that. When you're not a very good three-point shooting team, do you really want to be caught in a half-court set? No, you want to run.
No.
And what allows your team to run? Steals, turnovers, whatever it is. You don't want to be caught in a half-court offense. That's why I used to say about when you and I did the show back then on radio, and I said the same thing, and I'll say it now. When they won the championship, they could look at any team and say, pick the game you would like to play.
Yep.
And we will beat you at it. because we can beat you in a half court because we have good enough three-point shooters. And then, of course, we have Jokic. If you want to run, dude, we're good with that too. But all of that started with defense as well.
No question.
And now they have better three-point shooters. Tim Hardaway Jr. is a better three-point shooter. Bruce Brown might be one of the best three-point shooters if you put him on last year's roster. And he's not even their top outside shooting guard. Murray is, right?
Right.
Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And then Cam
Bradley
Johnson
Beal.
is obviously a
Correct.
very adept three-point shooter. So
you got to be able to balance those lineups with offense and defense. And now I finally think they have some pieces to address that. Cam Johnson, much better defensive player. Bruce Brown, better defensive player as well. Valanciunas, they couldn't get any worse defending the backup center position.
Right.
At least they have somebody now. With that, coming up after the break, Pro Football Focus writer Dan Wasserman listed his top 10 coaches. Now, this according to Pro Football Focus. And where did he put Sean Payton? I shouldn't say it like this, that I promise you the answer will surprise you. I promise you the answer will surprise you. That's next.
Spice up your next night out at Nola Jane and Lodo. Authentic Cajun cuisine like andouille sausage gumbo with dirty rice, crawfish etouffee, as well as 6 different po' boys like soft-shell crab and shrimp. Come in before or after a game at Ball Arena. Host a party or party on their rooftop deck overlooking Market Street during happy hour from 11 a.m. to 5. Plus, Nola Jane caters, delivers, and the kitchen is open late night. Make Nola Jane your new favorite spot to eat, drink, and party like it's Mardi Gras.
Ever wondered where city and county fleet vehicles go when they retire? Now's your chance to find out and score big. Imagine driving away with a great deal on a reliable vehicle. For over 45 years, Roller Auction has been the trusted source for government fleet vehicles and equipment. Trucks, SUVs, sedans, and more, all selling to the highest bidder. Don't miss out. Visit roller.bid/hot takes to get auction updates today. Your next vehicle could be just a click away.
Everyone has their favorite sports bar. Mine, the Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch in the DTC. Both locations are everything a sports bar should be. An upscale menu with 12 different burgers, outstanding wings, and my favorite, the Philly cheesesteak egg rolls. They've got every game on the NFL Sunday Ticket, MLB Extra Innings, NHL Center Ice, NBA League Pass, plus soccer, rugby, and UFC. Sportsbook is a hangout bar or great for private parties. The Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch, the DTC, and coming soon to Parker. They are the sports bar.
Ferguson's Heating and Cooling is the best in Denver, and their customers agree. Ferguson's has 165 5-star Google reviews, and here's one from Betsy. Highly professional, prompt, and honest. I switched to Ferguson's when I became aware my former company was trying to sell me a whole new system I didn't need. Ferguson's is an honest, working, family-owned business that'll give you a fair price, the highest quality parts and equipment, and they always show up on time. You can trust the Ferguson family like you trust your own family. Go to fergusonsheatingandcooling.com.
Everyone has their favorite barbecue spot. Mine, Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew. My favorites, slowly smoked ribs, smoked corned beef Reuben, smoked meatloaf with a portobello balsamic cream sauce. And don't forget about Smokin' Dave's 16-hour smoked brisket and pork with one of their 4 homemade barbecue sauces. Great sides, you bet. Barbecue beans made with pork and brisket and their southern corned bake. Man, you gotta try it. Plus, they have amazing non-barbecue entrees on the menu. Go where I go, Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew in North Denver.
Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos in Blackhawk have another incredible promotion. They'll be giving away a pair of Spider Cruisers or over $15,000 in cash the weekend of July 18th, just in time for the Sturgis Bike Rally in South Dakota. That's right, your choice, cruisers or $15,000 in cash. Get finalist entries every 45 minutes from 10 a.m. to midnight during their daily cash drawing with a locked-up jackpot of $100 or more. Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos, loose slots, great promotions, great food, and a family-owned casino that treats you like family.
And welcome back. Hot Takes, Goodman and Haertl, Pro Football Focus. They usually dive deep into the analytics on what makes a great player. Well, apparently they've done it with coaches, and that's what's trending.
What's Trending is presented by Nola Jane in the heart of Lodo. No one does Cajun cuisine better than Nola Jane. Go see why their award-winning menu is the best in town.
Pro Football Focus writer Dallas Wasserman came out with his list of the top 10 coaches in the NFL. In order, this is who he ranked as number 1, Andy Reid. Number 2, Sean Payton, then Sean McVay, John Harbaugh, and Mike Tomlin. So with Payton number 2, how did he come to that conclusion? This is what he wrote. Payton inherited a disaster in Denver, and his quarterback, Russell Wilson, clearly unhappy. After a 1-5 start, Payton rallied his team behind a strong defense to win 7 of its final 11 games. Wilson left town. Broncos got Bo Nix, which has turned out to be a match made in heaven. Denver has only added more talent this offseason and should continue to contend with its elite head coach leading the way. Number 2, Sean Payton. Agree or disagree?
Well, it didn't make me do a double take. I mean, it wasn't like, wow, zoinks. Look at that.
It did with me.
Well, I don't think, here's what I would say.
But there's a reason why. There's a reason why I did a double take.
Mhm.
Because I thought about what makes a great head coach a great head coach. The thing is, we look at, and rightfully so, don't get me wrong, it's about wins and losses.
Sure.
How many games did the head coach win in the regular season? How many games did the head coach win in the playoffs? How many Super Bowl titles does he have? With all of that said, and then I want to add to it, which is why I would put Sean Payton number 2. He has completely turned this franchise around 180. They were a disaster is a strong term, but it's not an inaccurate term to describe the Broncos after they won the Super Bowl. But they were a hot mess. Too many head coaches, too many quarterbacks, too many offensive coordinators. There wasn't solid ownership because of the Bolin Trust, so on and so forth. But when I look at what Sean Payton has done, changing things around, working with that Russell Wilson contract that he willingly ate, right?
Mhm.
Then you got to, get that off the books. They found the quarterback that they wanted. The roster looks completely different as it did a couple of years ago. They brought in high-end free agents who hopefully will find a way to stay healthy. And when I look at the other coaches around the league, the advantage that Sean Payton, for me, would have being number 2 is how many guys have fully turned it around. Mike Tomlin is number 5. We know he doesn't miss the playoffs, but he turned that thing around a long time ago. So this is more of an immediacy thing for me. He's been there for going on his 3rd year.
Right.
Look at what it was like 2 years ago. They have their quarterback. They have a purpose. They have a culture. They have a terrific offensive line, potentially a great defense. I get all of that stuff. And that's why Payton was a huge reason why all of that changed. That's why right now I would put him number 2. Now, if you're asking me, who is the best offensive-minded head coach in the NFL, I don't know if I would have Payton as high, even though that's what he's known for.
Yeah, might be in the top 5. Well, I think would probably be in the top 5, but probably maybe not the top 2. This is a question of individual taste. And what I mean by that is, would the Broncos trade Sean Payton right now for virtually any other coach in the NFL? And I think the answer is no.
No.
Just because of what you just talked about. He's 17-11 in his last 28 games. And this is a guy that took on the absolute rubble left by Nathaniel Hackett.
Yep.
Right? I mean, the absolute rubble, the mess. Think about Christmas Day in Los Angeles 3 years ago with Nathaniel Hackett, and what an absolute abject disaster the Broncos had become. And it was so in evidence on that day. And to the point where I thought he was going to get fired literally on Christmas Day, immediately afterwards. They waited a little bit. But anyway, the Broncos, and no one would trade. The Chiefs aren't trading Andy Reid, and the Rams wouldn't trade Sean McVay. Kyle Shanahan wouldn't be traded in San Francisco. Mike Tomlin has been he's the longest running coach, he and John Harbaugh, in the National Football League. Everybody finds their jam, and that's where they stay. And when you have these guys that have great staying power and longevity, those are the best coaches in the National Football League. So you get to a guy like Dan Callahan, who I think is a damn good coach, but we still don't have as much evidence with Dan Callahan.
Dan Campbell.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Dan Campbell in Detroit. We do with Sean Payton, both in New Orleans and now here in Denver. The guys that we're talking about all have extended time in the places that they are working or in the league. And so it's no mistake that those are the guys that are looked upon as the best coaches in the league because they're the ones that have survived.
Listen, Sean Payton deserves a lot of credit on a lot of levels for what he has done over the course of his career. But generally speaking, I think, I don't know, I'll ask you, do you think Sean Payton is better known for being a head coach or an offensive-minded head coach?
Probably the latter.
Right.
Probably the latter.
Yes. I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll ask you. I agree he should be number 2 because of how he has turned everything around. Listen, he could be number 2 this year, and the Broncos can finish 10-7, and the Chargers could finish, I don't know, let's say 12-5, and Jim Harbaugh is going to move to number 2 on that list because he's going to get the same grace that Payton did, turning everything around. Look what Harbaugh did in his first year. He's only going into year 2. I mean, he is the ultimate change agent. But when you look at offensive-minded head coaches, the names that come to mind right off the top of your head would be Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, possibly Kevin Stefanski.
Right.
And then Sean Payton. I'm not saying I didn't put Payton 5th on purpose. I'm just named them all off.
Right.
But in those 5, where would you put Sean Payton? Would you put him number 2? Offensive-minded head coaches?
Maybe not number 2. He'd be in my top 4 probably, considering the names that we just went over. I will say this. I think that he has gained a great deal in my view, about the totality of his control and his ability to build a program, to build a culture. So the totality of what he has done, to me, has been impressive. And I do think that last year, still pretty hamstrung by the situation with Russell Wilson, but those are decisions that they made collectively. They were going to eat the contract, blah, 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 and deal with the inconveniences of it. Look how good they were offensively a year ago. And they didn't even have a playmaking tight end, and you can make the argument, a playmaking running back, right? Yep. And they, towards the last 2/3 of that season, were averaging 25, 26 points a game.
Yep.
That's beyond our wildest imaginations when you stop to look at the offense that the Broncos have rolled out through about 4 different head coaches over the previous 8 years. So on both levels, he has improved, in my view, for whatever that's worth, not a whole lot, but for the purposes of our conversation, I think he has proven himself to be that much better of a builder, a cultivator, and a head coach, and that much better as an offensive-minded head coach.
Well, what's interesting is one of the knocks on Shanahan talking about Mike Shanahan, getting into the Hall of Fame, one thing I have been told by people close to the voting for the Hall of Fame, okay, one of the things holding people back from voting for Mike Shanahan is what happened in Washington.
Yeah.
The overall record was 24-40. He coached there for 4 seasons. 3 of them were 10-plus loss seasons. 1 season they wound up making the playoffs. So Sean Payton, right now, he is on a fast track to potentially pass Mike Shanahan because at least he turned around this franchise. Now it's only 2 years in. Let's see what happens moving forward. And I think Shanahan will be in the Hall of Fame before Sean Payton eventually retires. But with that, would Sean Payton to cement his ticket, and it's hard to say about anybody cement their ticket. I mean, Mike Holmgren thought he was going into the Hall of Fame because he made it through the big vote before everybody voted, and he was eligible to get in through the committee, and then he didn't get in, right? Then he didn't get in. My point is, for Sean Payton, does he need to get to a Super Bowl, or does he need to win a Super Bowl to cement his ticket to the Hall of Fame? Or is it neither?
Cement is a interesting term. To absolutely assure us, yes, I would say so. Do I think that Sean Payton is a Hall of Fame coach as we sit here today? I would engage in the conversation.
I'm going to tell you why I would engage in the conversation. Because I've had a front row seat to the rebuilding.
Yes.
I've had a front row seat to how they dealt with Russell Wilson, how they found a way to manage the cap. Now, granted, let's face it, Sean Payton does not hop out of the shower in his office, light some candles, and start working on the cap. He has other people to do that. But he's worked well with those cap people, as well as George Payton, to make things happen. And yes, you know, probably, I'm sure Sean Payton has said a lot of very strong things in his career, but what will I remember him most for, whether they win a Super Bowl or not, if he coaches another 10 years here, and he can say some pretty controversial things, just look at the Jared Bell USA Today article, in which he trashed pretty much anybody who was in his eyesight. At least that's what it felt like. The thing I will always remember Sean Payton for the most was his line, "I know how to draft quarterbacks better than anybody else." And I'm paraphrasing. That's not exactly how he said it, but that is sure as hell how he meant it.
Oh, that was the message. Yes, no question.
And with that, there were people who laughed at him, including me, and maybe including you and everybody else. That's a pretty bold statement to say, I know how to draft quarterbacks better than anyone when you have no history of drafting quarterbacks. Zero. Ian Book, I'm sorry, doesn't count. The kid who played for Colorado State doesn't count, as you really know how to draft guys. Now, granted, neither of those guys were first-round draft picks. I understand that. Sean Payton is responsible for helping Drew Brees' career along. No reasonable person would argue that. Would Drew Brees be Drew Brees without Sean Payton? Probably not. But he also inherited a Pro Bowl quarterback who became a Pro Bowler under, of all coaches, Marty Schottenheimer, where they run the ball first and second, and most of the time third, with LaDainian Tomlinson. Yeah, and he was a Pro Bowler. So it's not like he got some schlock off the scrap heap. You got a Pro Bowl quarterback in Drew Brees.
I think if Sean Payton continues to stay the course and is competing for divisions, which he may do as early as this year, year 3, as early as this year, I think that you know, with every step he gets that much closer to it. But yeah, there's probably from a standpoint of making him a slam dunk Hall of Famer, I think there's probably still some work to do.
No, there is.
Yeah.
He gets to a Super Bowl this year. Boom. Is he in?
Yeah.
There we go. That's it.
I mean, I think
win a Super Bowl, because there have been many coaches who have been to Super Bowls with multiple teams.
I would have to know how he does after it. I think that, and I'm not going to speak for you, but my guess is that collectively we think that the Broncos are now in a situation where they have created a foundation to move forward with that should allow them to be competitive in each and every season. And there is no question Sean Payton is the architect of that, period.
I'll be more specific in how I say it. This will be Sean Payton's 3rd year. We know what he did in New Orleans. If he gets to a Super Bowl this year, not wins it, gets to it after 3 seasons on the job, knowing what this franchise looked like before he got here, okay? And he decided, I'm going to retire at the Lombardi presentation, okay? He should go into the Hall of Fame very quickly.
Post haste. Yep.
He should go in almost not right away because he has to wait his turn, but he has checked every box.
Yeah.
He literally turned around a franchise if they get to a Super Bowl. Something Mike Shanahan, all due respect to him, I understand 2 Super Bowls. I understand his coaching tree. By the way, Dan Campbell's pretty good off the coaching tree, isn't he?
Yeah, sure is, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, no question.
I mean, the Lions, I would think, will eventually win a Super Bowl or at least get to one with Dan Campbell.
Is Kirk Cousins a Hall of Fame quarterback?
No, not at
Yeah,
all.
I didn't think so.
No, he puts up big numbers.
Yeah.
He just doesn't win.
No.
Now, in all fairness, I don't think Matt Stafford is a Hall of Fame quarterback in terms of what he's accomplished. But if you just watch him play,
Yeah.
you would say he absolutely is a Hall of Fame. Listen, he didn't win a lot of games with the Detroit Lions. We certainly saw what he was able to do.
I really like
Sean
Matt
McVay
Stafford,
and the Rams,
man. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But Kirk Cousins to me is how I used to look at Matt Stafford. Puts up big numbers, can't win. I think there was a stretch, and I'd have to look it up, but I know it's a fact. Over the course of like 2-3 years, when the Minnesota Vikings had Teddy Bridgewater, Case Keenum,
Right.
and who was the other quarterback that they had? He was injured all the time. He was a good quarterback. If you take those 3 guys, I can't remember his name. Alex, maybe you know. If you look at their like 2 previous years compared to Kirk Cousins' first 2 years, right, with Minnesota,
Yeah.
Minnesota won more games with those 3 guys. And it might be over a 3-year stretch.
Yeah. I was just wondering, just to circle
He doesn't
all.
win. That's the problem.
Yeah.
He doesn't win, and he doesn't win big games.
Because
But
I
he
was
puts
just
up big numbers.
Because I was just wondering whether or not Mike Shanahan gets credit for Kirk Cousins on some level.
Oh,
If Kirk Cousins was indeed a Hall of Fame type of quarterback.
Well,
he
first of
drafted
all,
him out of Michigan State.
Mike Shanahan has never drafted a great quarterback, ever. I'm sorry, I wouldn't put Jay Cutler in that category. I wouldn't put Greasy in that category. I wouldn't put Cousins in that category. Certainly wouldn't put RG3 in that category. But if you're willing to say, wow, look at what Shanahan did with Cousins, then Pete Carroll has just moved to the front of the line because he's the guy who drafted Russell Wilson and then started him right away over Matt Flynn after Seattle gave Flynn a boatload of money to come in as a free agent and some rookie beat him out.
But Pete Carroll is a Hall of Famer, right?
No, he's not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
But I'm talking in the way that the world sets up in his aftermath. He's a Hall of Fame coach.
He's one of the greatest coaches of all time.
Without question.
Because he did it at both levels.
Yes.
Now, granted, it depends on how you look at USC, right? Also,
They aren't doing it. They weren't doing anything then that everyone's not doing right now, just doing it above board, right?
And you can make the case, look at what he did with the Jets. He wasn't that great of a coach until he got to Seattle, built a defense, Marshawn Lynch, Russell Wilson, so on and so forth. So anyway, anything you want to close with before we wrap this baby up?
No, I think we took care of all of our business today. Good start to the week.
You too. All right, make it the best possible day you can.